Okay, let's get started. I'll continue from where we stopped. So we were looking at the various characteristics of B2B. Okay, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So just for a recap, we were looking at the basic differences between the B2B market and the B2C market. Okay, so I told you if you have to deal with B2B, then this is a very important part. Only if you know the various characteristics, only if you are able to know the characteristics more clearly and more specifically. So later on, when you go to formulate a business strategy and to have a good understanding of what is a B2B company and what are the various characteristics that are part of that company, you will get to be able to clearly understand the dynamics of the uh, B2B company as well as the dynamics of the market in which it operates, right? So you will find that these only if you are able to know this, then you will be able to know how to frame a very good business strategy. So going further, uh, this is another slide that also gives you slightly more descriptive explanation for this particular part. What are the similarities between a B2B and a B2C? Okay, in both these cases, just a sec, yeah. All right, so in both these cases, whether it's a B2B or a B2C, uh, customer service and the experience that you give to your customer, the promises that you make to your customers, and then the kind of, the kind of experience that they have, the customer service experience that they have from your organization remains the same. So you should remember these two things, right? Most often, what organizations tend to do at this point is they tend to concentrate more on the B2C customer and don't concentrate much on the B2B customer. Well, the B2C customer is that ultimate user, so that is where we give more importance. Whereas in a B2B, the B2B happens to be an intermediary. So you feel if I'm going to supply a small component, the component is not going to make a big difference when it is added up with several other products, right? So that is where we see, that we should not be ignoring that part is very, very important. Okay, so that's where customer service and experience becomes extremely, extremely important. Okay, so whether it's B2B or whether it's B2C, you must make sure customer service and experience is paramount. The second important thing, both entail a consistent and customer centric sales approach. So whether it's a B2B customer or a B2C customer that you're looking at, you must be able to concentrate, specifically to understand the needs and the requirements of both the B2C and the B2B. You must do a little bit of homework to find out what does the B2B customer want or what does the B2C customer actually want. Depending on that, you should be able to assess these two things, right? So it should be a customer centric approach. You cannot give them a stepmotherly treatment. It has to be equal. Both the B2B and the B2C customer, both are important buyers for us. So we need to know them well, we need to understand their business, and we need to understand what is their requirement and expectation. Why have they come to me, or why have they chosen me as a vendor instead of anybody else? So what is that they're expecting? So that clarity, if you are able to get, then you can devise a customer centric approach, and then you can always deliver according to their requirement. Third important aspect, authenticity and credibility are key engagement requisites. Authenticity and credibility, being very sincere in your promises that you make, in the delivery schedules, in all those terms and conditions that with which you are establishing this transaction relationship, has to be of a very serious nature, right? First thing, which is very often we tend to ignore this part. Authenticity and credibility when it comes to the B2C market is not very often seen, especially in high value, especially in low value goods. Like for example, many of those things that you buy in an FMCG store, you don't get to see that authenticity and credibility, especially when it comes to low value products. It could be a soap, or it could be a shampoo, or it could be a packet of noodles, or it could be a packet of chips and things like that. right? The moment you take it and you buy it and you use it, and then you realize that it's not as good like the way it was said it will be good. So what you do is you discard it and you don't do anything about it. Authenticity and credibility is very often attached, or we tend to become serious buyers when it comes to durable commodities, or when it comes to commodities that are going to last long. These are called high value goods, because we shell out a lot of money, and then when if that particular product does not do well or function well, then it pinches us because we've lost our money, we feel bad about it, we feel cheated. So that's where we go back to the store and then we place a complaint and then write to the customer service, we give them negative feedback, so all that is there, right? But for a B2B organization, it is not just about the experience of authenticity and being very genuine in your dealing with the good that you buy. For a B2B, uh, they are representing their organization. So with whomever they are dealing, whichever business entity or partner that they are dealing in the supply chain for the supply of goods, they want to deal with only those organizations that have similar value systems as theirs. If, for example, any one supplier has indulged in something unethical, or there has been a complaint or an accusation that is raised against them, that they have cheated consumers and it's come out in the media. So many organizations, what they do is they delink this relationship with the vendor, because they say we do not want to be associated with any firm that is not following the code of conduct or the ethics, right? So organizations attach more value. It's not just about buying one small part or one component, right? For them, they represent the organization and their interaction is just with that particular organization alone. So that's why authenticity and credibility are very, very key factors. Fourth aspect, customer loyalty, as we say, is very, very important. In B2C, in low value customers, people tend to buy. These are called one time purchases. People buy and they go and they very often forget from where they bought. So there is no kind of a relationship because this is a recurring kind of a buying. You keep buying this every month, right? High value purchases are largely based on branding, largely based on branding and the manufacturer. So if I am satisfied with electronic good company, and if I bought a certain particular product of a particular brand, then if I'm happy, then what I do is I tend to buy, right? I tend to buy everything else in the same brand, right? So that is where I make sure that customer loyalty is there, especially in high value goods. We want people to come back and buy the same brand of various electronic goods that my company sells. B2B, as I told you, is a very long lasting relationship. It's a continuous relationship, and it is a relationship that is based on trust. Right. So once you get the opportunity to supply to a manufacturing organization or an industrial unit,
Hello,
right?
sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes, yes, tell me.
Sir, this is Samuel, sir. So can you let me in the meeting? I was in the meeting, but therefore, the network issue, I got cancelled out. Sir.
Okay, you're in. Okay, so that is where we look at in the B2B, the relationship is more important, because once you are able to win the confidence of the B2B firm, the industrial unit or the manufacturer or the factory who's buying from you, then you get this opportunity of supplying to them on a regular basis, and ultimately you'll become part of their continuous supply chain. So customer loyalty is very, very important, in both these cases, in both B2B and B2C. But B2B, it's even more good because you will get to supply to this organization for a long period of time. Okay, so remember that customer loyalty will ensure that you get more business from the factory or the industrial unit, and you can continue and build a very dependable kind of a buyer. Fourth is contemporary buyers in both the markets are more knowledgeable compared to prior generations of customers. So that's the similarity we're looking at, right? Because every customer who goes into the market does a thorough job, right? Including you and me. Before we purchase any high value good, we always go in for doing a lot of research. We check on several websites, we go to the company's website, and then we inquire with a lot of people, and then we do a lot of evaluation of alternatives. We do a lot of comparisons of what is there, what is the other brand or product giving you, right? So what is the USP of this company's product, what's the USP of the other company's product. So we look at a lot of this information and then we go, right? And then we go there, and then when they are trying to tell something that we have not heard of, or we are not convinced, then we counter them with the knowledge that we have. So that's why in B2C high value purchases, consumers are a lot more knowledgeable, and they go with doing a thorough homework. Even in the case of a B2B, it is a very important task, because it's a professional job, and most of these are high value goods, and that's going to have an impact over many commodities that they're going to sell in the market, right? For example, a lot of times you would have heard of product recalls. Now, what is a product recall? Product recall is when a final commodity has been sold into a market. You see this very often in the examples of cars. Car companies, when they have manufactured a new type of car and they've sold in the market, then when there have been complaints about the braking system, or the clutch getting jammed, or there's some engine problem, or the engine overheating, some issue like that can crop up with a new product that is launched in the market, right? Now, when that happens, you will see that uh, when it is one customer who's raising a complaint, and then similarly, if you have many number of customers raising a complaint on the same issue within a short span of time, that's when organizations realize there must be some problem. So they ask the first set of customers who complained of the product to send their cars back to the showroom, or send it back to the unit from where they purchased. Then there they will dismantle to find out what is the problem. And if they realize the problem is with one particular component, the component of the battery that was supplied by one particular vendor is what is causing the overheating of the engine, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Just tell me.
Sir, this is Samuel, sir, you still haven't let me in the meeting, sir.
Just a second. I don't see you in the meeting waiting.
Sir, I was in the meeting, but then I was logged out, sir. There was a network issue. So the meeting,
I have enabled. Okay.
this meeting has been
Yeah,
logged
yeah.
by the host.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Okay, now you can come in. You should come on time.
Yes, sir, I was in by 10:43, sir, but there
Okay,
was a
okay.
network issue.
Okay. Okay, so so that's the point that I was giving you. So even if it's a small component, but that has a big deal, right? In this example, there is one component in the battery which was causing the overheating of the engine. Now, the whole car is now understood to be a malfunctioning product, or a product that has failed to meet the expectation as was promised by the organization. So the whole car is recalled just because of one component. Then when that particular component, they identify this is the cause, that is the reason why the car is not functioning well. Then then all the cars that were sold in that particular batch, or during that particular period, or all those who complained, will be asked to recall. The company will recall, they have to bring back their cars, and the component will be replaced, and it will be sent back. So this is a huge affair, because this is an extra additional cost that was not expected to be there in the first place. So that is where many organizations find it extremely difficult when it comes to this aspect. So that's why it's a very complex kind of process. And then the credibility of the organization also get damaged, because the customers and the market will not know about the supplier who supplied this faulty battery. They will only know that this car company, right? They will only remember Volkswagen. They will only remember a Maruti, or they will only remember Mahindra. They may not remember the name of the supplier who supplied this component. So the black mark and the negative publicity is going to be against this company. It's going to be the negative publicity is going to spread in the market, where everybody is going to be talking about it and sharing that this don't buy this brand of car, because it has a problem. So that's why it's very important that both the B2B supplier as well as the company that's buying, both will have to be on their guard, right? Because any negative publicity in a very severely competitive industry is not going to help, right? So likewise, B2B decision making unit, the members who are involved also go through a very thorough and a very systematic process of trying to know everything about the vendor who's supplying, and also about the supply component, and they will also explain very specifically, how this product is going to fit into rest of the products. So it's a very highly knowledge-based buying that happens mostly for these purchases that are high-value purchases, or where the component is a very strategic or an important piece in the part of the whole car that we are going to construct, or the whole machine or any product that we are constructing. Okay, these are similarities. So the gist of the similarity between B2C and B2B is every organization that is selling to customers and clients will have to be genuine, will have to be sincere, will have to do their homework, will have to understand the organizational requirement, and then only think about how you could add value to that organization. How can you make that organization do well? Because when their products do well, automatically our products will also do well, because when their demand goes up, our demand for our components also will go up. So it's an obvious win-win kind of a situation, and both the B2B vendor and the B2B organization will have to be on the same page, right? So let's go to very important aspects. First one is, what is the driving factor? Right? In the B2C, the driving factor is the brand and then the product features, right? So ultimately, you don't look at anything. You say, what is this product? I'm looking for a product that's going to satisfy my need. So what is this product? What are the features of the product? And what do these features do as a benefit or utility to me? And then they will go by the brand. Which particular company's brand is very good? So we only look at that. So the driving force in a B2C buying is the product features and the brand appeal. Look at on the other hand, when you look at on the other side, B2B. In B2B, the relationship is on, the driving factor is going to be product features. Because ultimately that's the rationale aspect on which we are going to decide whether this particular vendor is able to supply what we want. So what we want or that requirement is shared with the B2B vendor as the requirements or the specifications in which that particular component has to be made or built. And so we are looking at whether the vendor has complied with the requirement, whether all the features that we specified that should be there in the component is done or made by the B2B supplier, right? That's the first thing. Second is relationship. So most B2B purchases, or almost all B2B purchases, are based on relationship, because this is a win-win kind of a venture or a transaction that both of them are going to get in, and both of them need each other at the right time. So there has to be a proper relationship, there has to be proper channel of communication, there has to be well-written terms and conditions, and it's often on the basis of relationship. Once a vendor can always continue to be a vendor if you have worked on the relationship, you understand what is the major objective of the organization, and then you are helping them by delivering goods according to your requirement. Okay. Whereas in a B2C market, we don't see a lot of this relationship, right? Though we are part of many organizations give you customer loyalty cards, and they make you a regular part of their customer. They keep sending, information, emails, messages. So many things keep coming up. But we don't give much regard to it, because it's all negligible. So, and there is a lot of wide choice that is available in the B2C market. But in B2B, it depends on relationship. If the organization is not happy with the vendor, not happy with their service, not happy with the relationship or the manner in which the vendor is dealing with the company, then they may cancel that order, or when your term comes to an end, they may start looking for another vendor. Right? So remember that part of the driving force is relationship. What is the primary motivation for purchase? Let's look at B2C. Primary motivation for purchase is status related. I buy a lot of goods, high value goods, for status. It could be a flat, it could be jewelry, it could be a car, it could be an electronic good. Everything is related to status. When I own a particular product, I feel very good about it, and then people around me also will be able to identify me with the product that I am using. So I feel very good about that. It increases my status. Second is, we buy for personal satisfaction, personal gratification. We buy it for the fulfillment of our physiological and physical need, physiological as well as your psychological need. Third is, there is an emotional attachment. You feel good, you feel nice, you feel that you own the product, so it makes you, emotionally comfortable and happy. right? Your self-esteem also goes up sometimes, right? So that's there. And then there are economic conditions, value for money, right? We're always looking at any product that's able, that we are, where we are able to get a discount, or where the price is low. I'm going to get more features, or more in a particular product or a model with less price. So there are more considerations that a B2C does. B2B, on the other hand, will only look at strategic advantage and generate value. As I told you in the earlier explanation, the B2B company will only look for, the requirement from the vendor. The features, the specification, and the relationship factor is what will drive the business for the B2B, right? Strategic advantage. So which means when I use this particular component in my product, a product has to do well, right? So the success of my product depends on each and every vendor's component that has gone into the product. Success or failure of a product could be because of just one or two components that have malfunctioned when it was put into the final commodity, right? So that's the factor that we've got to keep in mind. Product pricing and complexity. So in the B2C, pricing aligns with individual capacity, comparatively less complex. So there is not much of issue when it comes to pricing, which means companies will fix a particular price, and if consumers are willing to buy the good at that particular price, they may go and buy it. That is one thing. Secondly, if a company feels that they want to give discounts, they may give to motivate more number of buyers to come and buy. So it's quite simple over there. Even if it's a negotiation, it's going to be a negotiation for less, a few 100 rupees or a few thousand rupees when it comes to high value commodities. So it's like that. But here the product pricing is complex. Very complex in sense, because ultimately the product that we're going to sell in the market will have to be of a competitive price, right? So which means when I'm looking to sell my product at a competitive price when others are also able to sell. I'll go back to the car example itself. If Mahindra is building a particular SUV, right? It's manufacturing a new SUV that it wants to launch in the market. So Mahindra is going to do a lot of this competitive analysis, and look at what are the different companies and what are the kind of Indian as well as foreign companies that are selling SUVs in India, right? Then look at what is the price range within which they are selling, and then what are the various features that they have incorporated into their SUVs when they manufacture and bring it into the market. So when I am building an SUV, when Mahindra is building an SUV, then it has to make sure that the price matches or it's more or less competitive with the rest of the others, right? It could be that one is to make it equal to what others are selling. One set of demand can be driven. Sometimes to give a new product an advantage, we tend to lower the price. So we will price it slightly lower than what others are offering. So that will also stimulate more demand, and more number of customers could also come in because the price is slightly lesser. So if this is the objective of the B2B organization when it comes to selling an SUV, right? Now they want every vendor, which means ultimately that cost advantage, that price advantage to the customer could be given only when I get a cost advantage, which means I should be able to make the SUV. Mahindra would be able to make an SUV only if they are able to bargain, negotiate, and then make sure that the entire amount of cost that is built through the supply chain is kept to as minimal as possible. Only when I'm able to buy components from a vendor at a competitive price or a much lesser price, then I get an advantage which I can transfer to the price of the commodity. So how do we do that? Is that whole negotiation that we have with various suppliers, right? If the supplier, the bargaining power of supplier, if you remember Michael Porter's model, bargaining power of supplier to the B2B company. If the B2B company has a greater advantage, or if it has more bargaining power, then it can talk to the vendors and try to get a very reasonable price or trying to reduce. But for vendors, again, it's very difficult because they also go by their own cost structure and the profit margins that they would want to earn, right? So this is pretty much there. One. Second is, it's not a one-time purchase, right? For example, when you go to a B2C market and you want to buy something, they may give you a discount. That discount may be a one-time discount because that's some kind of an offer that they're giving during a period. So you could get a 30% discount. But every time you go back to the store, you will not get a 30% discount. They'll say, sorry, madam, that was only during the festival season, we had 30%. So now it's back to the original price, right? But here what happens is, once we have made a car and then we have sold it to the market at a particular price, right? Which means we have negotiated with the B2B vendors and we've got a very reasonable price at which we are buying these components. So I make this product and then I sell it into the market, right? Now, after 2 months or after 3 months, I cannot think about increasing the price without any reason. So which means the vendor who's supplying these raw materials and components will have to stick to that price that was decided consistently throughout, unless and until there is a reason that they cannot manage, right? If they are able to do that, then only my car will continue to be at that price for the next 1 year or so. So that's where vendors have to manage their cost structures well and then be able to get to this vendor, look at various trade-offs. Trade-off is I will lose money, but I'm actually getting more demand from the B2B company, right? And I'm able to manufacture in bulk. I'm able to employ my sales because of this particular company. I'm able to sell 30% of my production, right? So look at that. That's the trade-off. So if I don't agree to this price, the B2B company will start looking for another vendor. Then I might lose out. Then I might lose out on this particular company. If I lose out, I am unable to supply 30% of what I produce. So the vendor will also have to look for another company. So it's quite a complex matter. It depends on a lot of dynamics when it comes to the price, when it comes to the supply source, and we to how to stay competent and consistent throughout is a big challenge for both B2B as well as B2B vendors as well as B2B buyers. So very important point. Just keep that in mind. Typical branding methodologies. And we understand in the B2C, it is through advertisements, sales promotional, personal selling, you have celebrity endorsements, all these are different ways, right? But in the B2B, all the information that the company wants to put out, or they want vendors to know, or they want potential customers and clients to know will be on their website. That's why the first source of information is always the website. The moment if one company wants to buy a certain component and they don't know the vendors or they do not have the list of vendors, they could just go to the Google search engine and look for vendors selling so and so component, right? So the moment that is being told, then a whole lot of websites will appear, and then the client or the user could click onto any one of the website and go through it and then find out whether whatever is said about the product or whatever is told with respect to it is okay, right? So they will just decide on that. So all the information has to be on the website. That's the first thing. Second is, what is a white paper? White paper are certain researches or some findings that has been done with respect to that particular manufacturing or that component. It could be an innovation with respect to a component. It could be an innovation for a new product. So white papers are articles, scientific articles or research-based articles that are put out in public for industries and users to see. Then research industry forums. Research is also another component, so through which the white paper comes. Then there are these industrial forums, like you have the automobile, manufacturers association. Then you have small SMEs, small manufacturing enterprises association, or you have the Retailers Association of India, or you have the Electronic Good Manufacturing, forum in South India. You have FICCI, you have FKCCI, you have ASSOCHAM. So all of these are industry bodies. But what these industries bodies do is they bring these like-minded industry organizations and then they have discussion. They have conferences where a lot of new knowledge is shared, a lot of innovation is explained, and then white papers are made available, right? This is there. And then it also happens through professional networks. So which is that word of mouth concept that we generally talk about in B2C. It happens through professional networks, which means when you go to this forum, you will meet similar manufacturers. And many B2B vendors who would want to supply to these manufacturers will also come in. And then, on a larger scale, we also have exhibitions. These are industrial exhibitions that you have, or technology innovations exhibitions that you have, which is where the buyer-seller meet also takes place. So these are all the first-hand ways by which a particular B2B company advertises or promotes what they require and look for right vendors. When we look at market size, yes, definitely B2C is large because the whole population of people who have the disposable income will constitute demand because we're targeting individual users or households. Whereas in the B2B, the market is very small, it is very focused, it is very niche, which means you can supply, if you're a B2B vendor, you can supply only to the manufacturers in that industry, first thing. Second is the requirement of that company and what you have to make for them may not be the requirement of all the firms in the industry. So you have to customize your component, customize your offering to different organizations according to their requirement. Right? What you sell for Mahindra may not be the same thing that you might have to sell for Maruti, because their specifications could be different depending on the type of car, depending on the type of technology or that engineering aspect that they've put into in building the car. So it's very focused, it's very small, it's very niche. So that's why B2B vendors are always on the receiving end, because the bargaining power is more with these players. And first of all, the number of players are small. And then organizations very often don't change vendors very often. They change vendors only when the vendor is not complying and there are more complaints, and then rest of the supply chain is getting stopped because of one vendor not doing his or her role or part properly. So once you are evicted from that transaction, once your contract is over, it's very difficult for you to get back. That is one. Second is, since it's a niche market and the number of B2B players are very small, they also have interactions between them. And through that interaction, if there is one supplier who's blacklisted, that will be shared with rest of the others in the professional network. Automatically, when you as a B2B vendor go to make your sales pitch, then your companies may not really entertain you, right? So pretty important point there. What is the purpose of the sales team? The purpose of the sales team in B2C is to maximize transaction. That is why you see salesmen, they will say anything possible to sell a product, because ultimately they're looking for the sale. What they said, what they did, whether they will be able to, answer them if something goes wrong, they're not bothered about this, right? Because it's a one-time transaction. So it's a high value transaction. I mean, it's a transaction value. So they just want to increase as many goods are sold in the market. So B2C is only looking at sales. I just want to sell maximum number of goods or services. Whereas in the B2B, it is relationship based. So you cannot be doing, you cannot be very blunt, you cannot be very informal in your sales approach when you are making a presentation to a B2B team. So in the B2B, as I told you, sales is driven through relationship. So unless and until the sales team of the B2B vendor makes a very good impact and understands their requirement, is very cordial, accepts, and brings out a very cordial kind of a relationship between the B2B decision making unit and the B2B vendors team, the salesmen will have to work on relationship. So it's only through a relationship that things will work in a B2B, right? And you have to constantly keep in touch. You've got to constantly keep meeting them personally, understand whether everything is going fine, whether anything else needs to be done. So that kind of a rapport building and relationship building is extremely important in B2B, because of the market size. The market size is very small. You have very focused vendor buyers, industrial operators. So you need to build a very good relationship. The number of stakeholders or decision makers in a B2C is just one or two members in the household, like the roles that we spoke about: initiator, influencer, decider, buyer, user. It could be just one individual or a few members in the family put together can decide, right? 2 or 3 people will, maximum 3 people will take the decision in a B2C. But in a B2B, it is a decision that is made by the decision making unit. It's called the DMU. Now, the DMU comprises of people from the organization. It could include the purchase managers. It could include the technical team, technical staff of the organization, and those who are R&D managers and engineers who are part of that particular manufacturing. They will all be there, right? So it's a complex decision, right? They will complex the decision. There are multiple decision makers. Everybody's opinion has to be seen and sought. Only when the members in the decision making unit are comfortable and happy that this particular component is a good component and it can help us to build a product successfully, then they will decide, right? So that's there. Going back to the next point. So what's the duration of the decision making process? So in the B2C, decision making process is very limited. The time taken is very short. At the max, you may take just 1 month if it's a high value good. Otherwise, you just need about 1 week's time to take a look at what is being offered and so on. Otherwise, most of it is all over the counter. Most of it is impulse buying. Most of it is bought immediately. The moment you see the product, you immediately feel that you need it. So the time taken to buy these goods are very less. That is why it's called fast moving consumer goods, because people take very little time and they keep buying often, and that increases. But for the B2B, it's a very elaborate process. When we go into the decision making process, consumer decision making process in B2B, you will realize the steps are a lot more longer than what you would have read in B2C. So here it is to first build a relationship, make a very good impact, a positive impact, right? And then when you go into the negotiation to deal with the price, the supply conditions, the credit conditions, all of that, asset inventory, all that when you're trying to do, it is a long process, right? Because the organization wants to be very careful when they deal with vendors. So that's why they do a vendor analysis. They ask for various information. They ask them to make a demonstration. A lot of times B2B companies will go to the vendor's facility to see for themselves how things are done, or and whether they will be able to comply to the orders and requirements. So that negotiation period and arriving at that decision to choose a particular vendor is much longer, and then based on that only they may probably give you the order. It could take about 6 months to 8 months for the entire negotiation process to be done, and then they will decide, because you cannot make hasty decisions. You cannot make impulsive decisions when it comes to the B2B market. So look at the sales cycle. The sales cycle is very short because it's very quickly the sale can be closed, right? It could just take hardly 5 or 10 minutes, or it could take half an hour, or it could take just 1 hour. Within that, the sale is closed, right? But the sales cycle in the B2B is quite longer because there are too many criteria that the B2C company will have to look for and see whether the vendor is able to comply to all of that. So the engagement process is longer, right? And because of which the sales cycle also is longer because it has to go through many stages. Required level of product knowledge, right? So required level of product knowledge is in the B2C market, you might know how to use it or you don't know how to use it. You might just walk into a store and say, I'm looking for this product. And then once the product is given to you and the salesman or the woman does the explanation, then you can try out your product, and then that's all. There is very minimal criteria that you have in mind when you are going to do a B2C purchase, unless and until it's a high value good, right? But whereas in the B2B, it's very important. The required knowledge is supposed to be high, and you should seek for a demos. Then you will look at pros and cons of it. What if the vendor is unable to deliver, or what if he has a problem, or what if the vendor's unit goes, employees of the vendor unit goes on a strike, right? So on the B2B, the knowledge component is very technical. But on the B2C, it is not technical, very often emotional. So it is attached to branding and the kind of sense that you get, or the feeling that you get about using a product of a particular brand. So primary sales and marketing activities. So how do we sell in the B2C market? So there are these point of purchases, right? So there are these point of sale units that we have. It could be in a Kirana store, it could be a supermarket, hypermarket, or it can be at the roadside, or it could be through online. Any number of ways you could go about purchasing. So it's mostly on the point of purchase actions, which is what we see in the retail stores. But in B2B, you will not see this retail aspect. You will not see retailing. You will not see them visibly spread across all the stores. It is not like that. It's built on relationship and educating. It's based on educating the B2B vendor on what is the strategic plan that we are carrying out and what is the new good that we are going to manufacture, and then we want people to come in, right? So that's there. Brand awareness is on the basis of what the manufacturer is making. So it's often the manufacturer's brand and not a private label, as you see in B2C cases. What is the length of the relationship? The relationship between the buyer and the seller is very short in B2C, and the relationship between B2B vendor as well as the B2B component buying company is long term. So which means it's long term, it's a recurring, and it's a continuous relationship that will go on as long as we are making that particular product. Okay, so these aspects are very, very important. Based on this criteria is where we've seen. So these components are very, very important. And only when you need know these components and the driving factors. See, these two columns are very, very important. So any B2C, understanding of any B2B sales operations, understanding how an entire supply chain works, understanding, what is the technical requirement that needs to be, you know, needs to be understood on the part of the B2B vendor, and then be able to make a product that satisfies their need and gives them that overall success is what, is what we have to know. So only when we are able to know this criteria, then we know how the dynamics of the B2C market functions. Okay, any questions on any of these? Anything you'd want to add before I go to the next part? Any clarification, any doubts? Can I get some answer, please? Are you all there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Any clarifications?
No, sir.
Oh, it's fine. Okay. So it's the same for the others?
No, sir.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll go ahead. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. All right. Now, what are those dynamics that we have to discuss? Right. In the B2B, it's all about demand. Right. So this is the dynamics that is going to decide the relationship between the buyer and the supplier. Okay, so that's what makes the industrial market. And this is the kind of economics or the kind of demand that you will see that operates within the B2C market. Okay, so let's look at that. First one is the B2B. In the B2B market, all the purchases are done through a derived demand. So what is a derived demand? So derived demand refers to the direct link between the demand for an industrial product and the demand for consumer goods. So the demand for industrial products is derived from the demand for consumer goods. Okay. So what do you understand? So just let me give you an example of the last few months. What was the scenario during March, April, and May for industrial units? What was the what did you what was the economy like during those 3 months of lockdown and unlock? What was the economy like, Indian economy like, or the world economy like? You heard my question? Okay, Albin Benny, you can answer that question. Albin Benny, are you there? Albin Benny is not there, so he's marked absent. Jabin? Not Albin, Ebin Benny. Ebin, can you hear me?
Hello, sir.
Yes, what do you think? Where were you when I called out your name?
Sir, like the connection is not that good, sir. I came
okay.
outside.
So in the last 4-5 months, what
Yes,
was
sir.
the economy like? What was the economy like in
Sir-
India as well as the world?
Sir, like as we all know, the pandemic has hit the economy very hard.
Very good.
Not only in India, every country has suffered it. Like mainly United States.
Yeah.
Like they have to close the Wall Street and like the Wall Street for a month. So it has really affected the economy in US.
In India?
Like India also, like a lot of people lost their jobs.
Correct.
And also like when we look, like all the industries has been affected by the coronavirus.
Okay. Well, why were they affected?
It's like they were like lack of movement of trade and goods.
Okay.
That was the main reason. Then like if you take the case of Europe and all, like they closed the borders between countries.
Yes.
So it really affected the economy in Europe as well.
Yes. So all over the world, as well as in India specifically, that was a period when economic activity was down. Right. One was because yes, employees, the fear of infections were there, and there was a lockdown, and then a lot of employees had to, I mean, workers had to go back to their houses and so on. So no production happened at that point of time, or whatever sales supply was available was mostly on the basis of the inventory that they had built up. Those companies that had stock, so though the factories were not functioning, with that inventory they were able to match the demand that was there in the market, right? And on the other hand, what was also happening is consumers were losing job. Majority of the people in India, right, a good majority of them were losing jobs, right? And they were losing jobs. They were, some organizations fired them, and there was always this worry and sentiment that was also there. Okay, so that sentiment was also there. The consumers, we call this as consumer sentiments, purchase confidence index, right? So not many people decided to buy because shops were closed, and most of the purchases people pushed forward because they were not sure what is going to happen to them and their jobs, and so on. So when the demand in the consumer market is low, automatically the demand in the industrial market will also be low. So we are talking about two things here, demand and supply. When demand is high, supply will also be high. When demand goes down, the supply will go down. Because all these commodities that we are talking about are ultimate commodities that are going to be sold in the B2C market. If B2C consumers don't come and don't express that demand, then industrial consumers will not be in a position to make good. This is what is derived demand. So B2B derives its demand from the B2C. When more number of units are sold, automatically the position for the company, or the fulfillment requirement for the company also will increase, right? So post those 4 months, then when the Diwali season started, many companies have reported saying that the sales that they have made or the economic activity is back in order, is because B2C consumers started using that festival season, and then they started coming out and started making purchases of all the goods. So if you look at October statistics for October and November statistics for many organizations post the lockdown, all of them will say that yes, things have improved, it's much better, consumers are coming, there are more orders that we are taking, and some of them have actually seen the growth which was equal to what it was during pre-COVID or what it was last year. So we must understand, so most of the orders and the purchases that we make with the B2B vendor in terms of quantity is often dependent on the market in the B2C. So when that is what we call as the peak season, especially the season after October. October to until the end of January is called the festival season around the world and India. So that is the time more consumers are willing to spend, especially on electronic goods and very high value purchases. People would want to make that kind of purchases. So on the other hand, B2B also. So February, March, April, May, the numbers are very small. But when October comes, that is a peak. Whatever they were not able to do in the 6 months or 7 months prior to the festival season, they will try to encash on that during the peak season, because that's when the consumer confidence is high in the B2C. When that happens, more number of people come to the stores, buy these goods. Automatically, the demand in the industrial commodity, supply chain also will increase. So I've given you an example of Harley-Davidson. So Harley-Davidson manufactures some of the components, but the finished product reflects the effort of more than 200 suppliers or business marketers who deal with them. So here you can understand how the derived demand works. When consumers in the market are increasing their orders for Harley-Davidson bikes, when the number of users are switching or are making first-time purchases of a Harley-Davidson bike, so automatically demand for Harley-Davidson bikes will increase. On the other hand, Harley-Davidson as a unit, right, that manufactures these two-wheelers are going to supply, right? So when more orders are placed, more of these bikes have to be built and sold. When that happens, automatically 200 odd suppliers who supply small components and all these parts that go into the Harley Davidson bike, even there also you will see a derived demand. So the three steps that you see. One is derived demand for the B2B from the B2C, right? And then the derived demand from the B2B to the supplier, the B2B company or the factory to all the suppliers. So all the 200 suppliers and business marketers will benefit when Harley Davidson manufactures more bikes and it sells. Okay. In purchasing a Harley Davidson motorcycle, the customer is stimulating the demand for a diverse array of products manufactured by business marketing firms such as tires, electrical components, coil springs, all of that demand goes up. Okay, so what's the latest with Harley Davidson? Is this the case? What is the latest news about Harley Davidson in India? Samuel? Samuel, can you hear me? Joanna? Joanna? Can you hear me? Okay, Harish is giving me
Yes,
an
sir.
answer. Yes. What is the state with Harley Davidson in India? What is the answer? No, not sure.
Hello. Sir.
Yes. Speak up.
No, sir, I do not know. I do
Okay,
not follow.
Okay, Harish.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Harish, you can tell the answer. What is happening with Harley Davidson?
So they are leaving in Indian market, but they are collaborating with Hero.
Okay. So that is the latest. The latest news was that Harley Davidson, which had its manufacturing unit in North India, they have decided to close down and then close down the market in India, close down their business in India. But the news is also that they will be tying up with the Hero Group and then come up with something, based on a joint venture. Now, why did this happen? Why did Harley Davidson decide to quit India? Is because there was not enough demand in the B2C market. There was not enough B2C, there is not enough demand in the B2C market, which automatically Harley Davidson felt for running a huge unit, making sure production and supply happens, the demand is not catching up. So they've decided that they would want to leave, but they'd want to join hands with Hero and then want to see with something else. And also with Royal Enfield. So some collaboration over there just to make not those expensive Harley Davidson bikes because the number of users are less, but they would want to do something that's comparatively good for Indian users, looking at their budget and the kind of product experience that they want. So this is derived demand. You should remember this. So the sales for the B2B company is often through a derived demand. Let's look at the second one. The second is the demand is fluctuating, right? In fact, I told you demand fluctuates. I just gave you that example. I said most of these electronic FMCG commodities, all of that, durable goods, they'll have a good sales during October, November, December until the end of Jan, right? Prior to that, you will not see many. You will not see it'll be an average one, but not a very astonishing spike in sale. That is the reason why you have these end of season sales. Why this end of season sale happens during the month of August and September, right? During the month of August and September is where you will see end of season sales, especially in the B2C market. Now that's because demand is low over there. And then there is enough of inventory that is built up, which has to be sold before the festival season inventory comes in. Because the goods are getting manufactured in anticipation for the festival season to be increasing the demand. So companies will be working overnight 3 shifts trying to manufacture and keep everything ready. Only if the old stock is out, the new stock can come in. That will bring more new consumers in the market. So demand fluctuates, right? Demand fluctuates. It depends on consumers' sentiments. So that's another factor that we've got to keep in mind. So fluctuation demand is because demand is derived. So when the consumer confidence in B2C is low, then demand for industrial commodities also will go low. If it's high, it goes high, like what happens from October to Jan. So they have to carefully monitor the demand patterns. That is why you do this demand forecasting exercise, right? What is the sales going to be next month, in quarter 2 and quarter 3? They make predictions. That's where averages are taken, analytics and other guiding tools are used to find out how the whole demand is going to function in the coming months as such. So based on that, you've got to make a decision. Because everything is cost based. Unless and until goods are sold, you would never be able to recover your returns. The longer you keep your inventory, the longer your inventory cost also is going to go up. So there's a lot of complications when it comes to making a decision. So let's look at an example. A decline in mortgage rates can spark an increase in new home construction and a corresponding increase in appliance sales. Okay, even in Karnataka and India also, there has been some news related to that. If anybody could explain that. What is happening to interest rates for home loans? What is happening for registration of new properties at the registrar's office? Any news on that? That was the latest. Cynthia?
So I'm not aware of it, sir.
Not aware. What's happening? Rijo?
Yes, sir.
What is happening in the real estate market? How do they want to revive?
So they're increasing taxes.
Not the taxes. I'm talking about the real estate. What is happening to the real estate market?
So even though the housing loans interest rates are getting down, but people are interested to take loans and go for during this time.
See what has happened in the real
Sir,
estate
moreover,
market.
so there are some banks.
Yeah.
So there are some housing finance companies,
Yes.
which the RBI said they want to convert it to big banks. So that's also there.
Okay, especially because we're talking about mortgage rates. In India, what happened was all that flats that the builders had constructed. Post May, there has been nothing. One is some of these under construction flats also did not have laborers to work. So many of them migrated. That is one thing. And the pandemic also brought in very low sentiment because everybody was in a state of panic when they will lose jobs or what is going to happen. A lot of other additional cost also came up. The working from home itself brought in a lot of additional cost. So real estate business actually fell down. The sales went down and a lot of flats that were booked, payments were not coming, and then they were also not able to sell any more additional units. So the retailers association, the real estate association petitioned the government and told them at least reduce the registration rates. At least reduce the registration rate from 5% to 2.5 or 3%, so that will motivate more number of buyers to come, especially for low priced flats. Any flat below 40 lakh rupees, the registration fee would be reduced. So that was just to bring in. So because the demand is not coming, derived demand is not happening, right? And ordinary circumstances, these flats would have done well, but that was not happening. So they've increased. Now they've decreased the registration rate with the hope that first-time home buyers or singles or youngsters who've just started working and in just about 8 or 10 years of their career, they would want to invest in a small flat. That's also going up. So they're looking at that concept. They're also
Sir, also, so I'm like,
yeah.
Sir, also there is a Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, so you have to go to banks and
Yes,
fill
yes.
the
So
forms.
you get
Then you get a huge discounts.
you get a good tax advantage. So close to around 2.5 lakhs or something is given under the Awas Yojana. So you can derive. This is all for first-time buyers. And now another concept on the basis of this is they're saying now work from home is going to continue. Many IT firms have decided because the cost of running offices itself is a huge expense. So they want to reduce that, and they said since the work from home concept may continue even after, even until the next year, many are wanting to invest in a proper house. Many of them who are living on rent are now planning to buy. So they said they might probably invest in something which is a less than a 40 lakh kind of a flat, a 1 BHK or a 2 BHK. So that could possibly increase demand. So Why I'm giving you this example is that's what the real estate did. The real estate builders association came together and they said, how do we increase the demand in the B2C market? When will more number of B2C players start coming and looking flats and buying so that our business also increases and improves? So that is where they were petitioning the government, give them an advantage. Right, give them an advantage, reduce interest rates for home loans, and then also reduce the registration rates for properties that have to go in for registration. Okay, so that's where demand fluctuates. So when demand is fluctuating, that's when we see peak season of and non-peak is what we call that. During a peak season, you don't have to do anything much. The demand itself will eat the supply. But non-peak seasons or periods when there is a lull in the market, B2C consumer confidence is low, that's when companies have to think about newer ways to increase that demand or to stimulate that demand in the market, which indirectly will help the manufacturer and then all the suppliers in the supply chain. So two aspects you keep in mind. So when we come back, we will look at the other dynamics of the demand. Okay. Right, we'll stop with that.
Yes.
Okay then, thank you.